Christmas is at my mother-in-law's this year. You can stay home." Those were the exact words that greeted me before I had even taken off my coat. I was still holding the warm casserole dish in both hands, the steam rising into my face, when my daughter said it. No hesitation, no confusion in her tone, just a simple announcement, as if she were telling me the weather. "My name is Maren Kessler. I am 67 years old. I had come to Hannah's house because she asked me to stop by early." That was how she phrased it in her short text. I thought she needed help with the stockings or wanted me to taste test her cranberry glaze like she used to. I thought I might hear, "Mom, can you help me wrap the kids' gifts?" Or, "Mom, I'm so glad you're here." But instead, she stood at the kitchen counter with her hair pinned up and her phone tucked under her elbow, stirring something on the stove as if nothing about today was unusual. She did not turn fully toward me when she said those words. She only spared a quick glance over her shoulder, then went back to her pan. I set the casserole down slowly, careful not to let my hands shake. The dish had taken me the whole morning to make. Hannah used to beg for it when she was 9. I could still picture her, elbows on the table, chanting for seconds. "Well," I said softly, "I did not realize plans had changed." Hannah tucked her hair behind her ear. "It just makes sense this year. His parents already have everything set up. It's easier for everyone. Everyone. Except me." I nodded the way mothers do when they are trying not to cause trouble. The kind of nod that smooths the edges of a wound instead of preventing it. I told her I understood. I told her it was fine. I told her not to worry about me. She smiled quickly, guilty, relieved, and said she had to finish cooking before the kids got back from school. I stood there for another minute, unsure whether to ask if she needed help or simply leave. In the end, she made the choice for me when she reached for the casserole and said, "I'll heat this up later." Her fingers barely brushed mine. On the drive home, I kept one hand on the wheel and the other pressed against my chest, as if something inside might fall apart if I did not hold it steady. The streets of Portland were wet from an earlier drizzle, and the holiday lights hung in the windows of houses I passed felt like they belonged to some other world. A world where families were still whole and invitations were automatic, not earned. When I pulled into my driveway, the porch lights I had strung 2 days earlier flickered in the wind. My living room window glowed softly, the tree already decorated, the stockings already hung. I had prepared everything the way I always did, believing my daughter and grandchildren would walk through my door like every other year. I stepped inside, set my keys down, and looked at the empty living room. The scent of cinnamon still lingered in the air, warm and hopeful. It felt almost foolish, like a promise I had made to no one but myself. I hung up my coat, sat on the edge of the sofa, and listened to the silence of my house. I tried to remind myself that it was only one Christmas, that families changed, and children grew, and everything settled if you let it. But the truth was quieter than that. I had been left out, and the ache of it settled beside me like an old companion. Outside, the rain began again, tapping softly against the windows. I stared at the tree, its lights blinking steadily in the dim room, and felt something inside me shift small, but unmistakable. I knew I would not sit in this house waiting for the door to open. Not this time. And that was the thought I carried with me as I rose from the sofa, walked toward the hallway, and reached for the light ready, without knowing it yet, to begin the next chapter of my life. When I walked back into my house, I kept my hand on the doorknob longer than necessary, as if the cold metal could steady me. The Christmas lights I had set to turn on automatically blinked gently around the room, casting a soft glow across the decorations I had put up earlier in the week. I had imagined my grandchildren running toward the tree, arguing over who got to plug in the lights. I had pictured Hannah behind them, laughing, her arms full of wrapping paper. None of that was happening. It was just me. I slipped off my shoes and carried the empty casserole dish to the kitchen counter. The silence followed me, thick enough to notice. My neighbor, Mrs. Ellery. Knocked on the back door a few moments later. She must have seen my car pull in. She cracked the door open slightly. Marin thought you might want company. Did everything go all right over there? I forced a small smile. Everything is fine. Just a quick visit. She stepped inside without waiting. She was like that kind, but blunt in a way that came from age. She glanced around at the decorations. Tree looks beautiful. Thought you'd have the kids over this weekend. I kept my voice steady. Plans changed. Changed how she asked. Folding her arms, I rinsed the casserole dish slowly. Hannah and her husband are spending Christmas with his family this year. Mrs. Ellery's brows lifted in a way that said she understood more than she let on. So she told you. Just like that, I shrugged. It is what it is. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You do not have to pretend for me. I dried my hands on a towel and leaned back against the counter, trying to find words that did not sound like begging for pity. She said I could stay home. Those were her exact words. A long silence filled the kitchen. Not heavy, not suffocating, just honest. Oh, Marin, she whispered, and that was more sympathy than I could bear tonight. I shook my head quickly. I do not want to talk about it, I said. She nodded, respecting the line. Then, let me at least make you tea. Nobody should sit alone on a night like this, but I gently guided her toward the back door. I appreciate you, I really do, but I think I need some time. She hesitated before stepping out, squeezing my arm softly. Just knock if you need anything. When she left, the house sank back into quiet. I walked into the living room and sat on the floor beside the tree. One of the ornaments, a tiny felt mouse wearing a red scarf, had belonged to Hannah when she was 6. She used to make him talk during tree decorating, giving him a squeaky voice. I picked it up carefully, running my thumb along the fabric. It felt wrong to put it back on the branch, as if I were placing him in a scene that no longer had its actors. My phone lit up on the sofa. A text from Hannah. Thanks again for stopping by. Sorry for the short notice. It will be easier this way. Easier. For whom I typed out I understand, but did not send it. I deleted the text, put the phone face down, and leaned my head against the couch cushion. The steady blinking of the tree lights reflected faintly across the room, filling the space with a warmth that felt like a memory instead of a presence. The ache in my chest was not sharp. It was not loud. It was slow and familiar, like something that had been waiting patiently for me to sit still long enough to notice it. I stood up and walked to the hallway closet, pulling out the storage bin where I kept Christmas supplies. I stared at the rolls of wrapping paper inside bright reds, greens, golds. I had bought them last week with the certainty that little hands would tear into them. I closed the lid gently. The house was too quiet, not hostile, not cold, just quiet enough to hear my own pulse. I turned off the tree lights and went to the kitchen, letting my hand drag lightly along the wall as I walked. The darkness felt less like emptiness and more like truth. The silence settled beside me at the table, uninvited but honest. And it stayed. I had barely finished wiping down the kitchen counter when my phone buzzed again. Hannah's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a moment, feeling the weight of the earlier conversation still sitting in my chest, then finally answered. Mom. Her voice was soft. Too soft. The kind of softness someone uses when they are hoping it will cover the damage already done. Yes. Sweetheart, I said, keeping my tone even. I just wanted to check on you, she said quickly. You left kind of fast. I did not want to get in your way. You were not. She insisted, then paused. Well, maybe the timing was just off. I sat at the table, fingers tapping lightly against the wood. Hannah, you told me to stay home for Christmas. I am trying to give you the space you asked for. That is not what I meant, she said. It is complicated. It sounded simple. She exhaled loudly, the kind of breath that came from frustration rather than regret. Mom, his parents expect us there. They already planned everything. His mother ordered a catered dinner, and she invited people from her church, and inviting me would complicate things. I finished for her. That is not fair, she said quickly. It is just that his family does things a certain way. They like structure, they like plans, and I do not fit into those plans. I said. She went quiet for a moment. You know that is not what I meant. I did not respond. The silence stretched between us until she filled it again. Mom, I am sorry. I should have told you sooner. Everything got overwhelming, and I did not think. You did think. My voice came out steadier than I felt. You made a choice. She sighed. Please do not make this harder than it already is. I closed my eyes. I am not trying to make anything harder. It is just one Christmas, she said. Next year will be different. Will it? She hesitated. I do not know, maybe. His mother has expectations. She always has, I said gently. You know how it is. Mom, they have money, connections, the kind of reputation they care about. They do not say it out loud, but they expect us to show up, to be part of their image, and I am not part of that image. Mom, it is all right, Hannah. I said, I understand. No, you do not, she said, voice tight. I am trying so hard to balance everything. I have the kids, the house, his parents, work, and you are so easygoing, so understanding, and I forget that you have feelings too. My throat tightened. Thank you for saying that. She sounded relieved. So we are okay. I looked at the empty living room, the untouched decorations, the quiet that waited for me everywhere I turned. We will be, I said. I really am sorry, she whispered. I know she promised to call again soon. I told her good night. Then I set the phone face down on the table and let the quiet return. After Hannah's second call, I tried to busy myself with anything that would quiet my mind, folding dish towels, rearranging the spice cabinet, wiping the already clean counter. Nothing worked. Every small sound in the house felt too loud. Every silence felt even louder. I finally walked toward the hallway closet, telling myself I would take down the last box of decorations I had planned to put up. Something simple, something mindless. But when I opened the closet door, a wave of cold air brushed my face, carrying with it a faint, familiar smell, old leather, cedar, and thyme. I reached up to pull the box from the top shelf, but my hand brushed against something firm and flat. I stood on my toes and pushed aside a folded blanket. That was when I saw it. The suitcase. The old one. The only one Paul and I ever truly traveled with. I pulled it down carefully, both hands gripping the worn handle, and set it on the hallway floor. A thin layer of dust coated the top. I ran my fingers through it, drawing a slow line. I have not seen that in years. I turned. My neighbor, Mrs. Ellery, stood in the doorway. She must have heard the closet door slam earlier and let herself in. She always did that, announcing herself only after she was already halfway inside my house. I thought you went to bed, I said. I saw your lights flick on again. She replied. I figured something was keeping you up. She nodded toward the suitcase. That from your trip back when? Yes, I said softly. Paul and I used it when we went to Vermont. The one real vacation we ever took. She stepped closer, touching the corner with a gentle finger. He used to talk about wanting to take you to Europe. I smiled sadly. He did. We planned and planned, but something always got in the way. Work, money, my mother getting sick. Life. She studied my face quietly. Why did you pull it out now? I did not. I said, it was just there. She raised a brow. Things do not show up unless we are looking for them. I crouched beside the suitcase and unlatched it. The hinges creaked faintly as I lifted the lid. Inside lay a folded flannel shirt of Paul's, a travel journal he bought but never used, and an old map with marked routes we never drove. I picked up the shirt first. It still carried the faintest trace of cedar from the closet he used to keep it in. He loved that one. Mrs. Ellery murmured. I nodded. He wore it on our last fall hike, the one by the river near the gorge. You should take it out more often, she said. Memories do not keep themselves alive. I placed the shirt back carefully and rested my hand on the suitcase edge. Hannah thinks I am fine with being alone on Christmas. You have spent most of your life making everything easy for her, she said. People forget the ones who never complain. I swallowed. I do not want her to feel guilty. There is a difference between guilt and awareness, she said quietly. I closed the suitcase halfway and held it there, the weight of the lid balanced between open and shut. That was how I felt, caught in the space between what life used to be and what it might still become. Maybe this is silly, I said, but seeing this again, it makes me think of what we never got to do. Mrs. Ellery smiled. Just a little. Maybe it is time you do something for yourself. Her words hung in the air, not heavy, just true. She gave my arm a squeeze and headed toward the door. Get some sleep. Marin. When she left, I sat alone with the suitcase open at my knees. The old leather, the map with its faded roots, the journal with blank pages waiting for something to be written in them. I touched the handle again, tracing its curve. It felt steady, solid, familiar. The world had once felt open to me, and for the first time in a long while, I wondered why it could not feel that way again. I carried the suitcase into the living room and placed it beside the coffee table. Unsure why I needed it near me, but knowing it felt wrong to put it back, I made a cup of tea I did not drink and sat on the sofa with my laptop open on my knees. The screen's glow felt too bright in the dim room. At first, I typed nothing. I just stared. Then I wrote 2 words into the search bar. Christmas trips. A list of ads popped up: discount cruises, family resorts, winter getaways. All of them felt tailored to people who already had someone waiting for them. I scrolled past them quickly until a smaller link caught my eye. Holiday group tours for seniors. I clicked. A new page opened, filled with photos of smiling travelers wearing wool hats, standing beneath old cathedrals, holding hot drinks in their gloved hands. Germany, Austria, Switzerland. All of it looked impossible, unrealistic, something for other people. I skimmed the prices, my breath tightening when I saw the numbers. It was not cheap. It was not even close to cheap, but it was also not $200,000. It was within reach. If I dug into the savings Paul and I had kept for someday, I could manage it. Someday. We had said that word so often, it lost shape. I scrolled until I found one tour leaving in 3 days. 3. My hand paused on the touchpad. A knock sounded at the back door. I startled, snapping the laptop slightly closed before opening it again. It was Mrs. Ellery again. She peeked her head in. You awake, apparently. She stepped inside, eyeing the suitcase beside the couch. You are not thinking of running away, are you? Not running? I said. Maybe walking quickly. She chuckled and sank into the chair across from me. What are you looking at? I turned the screen toward her. Reluctantly. Just browsing. Her brows lifted when she saw the words Christmas in Europe. That is not browsing. Marin. That is planning. I am not planning anything. I insisted. I just wanted to see what was out there. And what is out there. Things I cannot afford. Things I would not do alone. Things I am too old for. She waved a hand. You are not too old for anything except maybe skateboarding. And who cares about that? I sighed, leaning back. It feels ridiculous. Going somewhere alone for Christmas. It feels brave, she corrected. Brave does not come wrapped in confidence. It comes wrapped in fear. Same package, different intention. I frowned at the screen again. What if I get lost or sick? Or what if I get there and realize I made a terrible mistake? What if you do not? She countered. The quiet between us settled like a blanket. Not comforting, not heavy, just present. You loved traveling with Paul, she said. He would tell you to go. Her words hit a delicate place inside me. Paul had always been the one pushing me to step outside the small fences I built around my life. He would have laughed if he could see me hesitating now. I do not know if I am ready, I whispered. She leaned forward. Maren, you are ready for more than you let yourself admit. I looked back at the screen. The blinking cursor sat above the button that read, Book Now. My heart thudded in a slow, nervous rhythm. My hand hovered above the laptop trackpad, trembling just enough for me to notice. Do it for yourself, she said softly. Not for anyone else. I inhaled deeply, feeling the air fill my ribs and press against the ache lodged in them. My finger pressed down. The screen shifted. A confirmation page opened. My breath left me in a single shaky exhale. I had booked the flight. Mrs. Ellery smiled, but she did not clap or cheer. She simply stood, touched my shoulder once and said, Get some sleep. You will need it. When she left, I closed the suitcase halfway without even thinking and placed Paul's old map inside. Then I set the travel journal on top of it. The house was quiet again, but the silence felt different, less like a wait. More like an open hallway leading somewhere new. I shut the laptop, the confirmation email still glowing faintly on the screen, and brushed my fingers over the suitcase handle. The next chapter of my life had just begun, quietly, with a single reckless click. I arrived at Portland International Airport 3 hours early, partly out of caution and partly because sitting alone at home felt unbearable. The terminal buzzed with voices, families reuniting, children tugging on luggage, couples moving together in an easy rhythm I had not felt in years. I checked in, cleared security, and walked toward Gate 16 with my small suitcase rolling behind me. Every step felt both too light and too heavy. Across from my seat, a young woman wrapped her arms around her mother. The mother laughed. Brushing tears from her cheeks, Call me when you land, she said, hugging her daughter again. Nearby, a father lifted his toddler high into the air before kissing his wife goodbye. Their warmth pressed against me like a memory I was not part of anymore. I set my bag down and sat, clasping my hands in my lap. The screens above me flickered with flight information: Munich, Frankfurt, Vienna. My flight was listed as on time. Seeing it typed in neat letters made the decision feel suddenly real. My phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. Are you busy? I typed back. At the airport. The typing bubbles appeared instantly. Airport. Why I hesitated, then wrote, I booked a trip, leaving today. A long pause followed. Then, where are you going, Europe? Her reply came fast. You never said anything. You should have told me. I exhaled slowly. You told me to stay home for Christmas. So I chose somewhere else to be. Another pause. Longer this time. Mom, I did not mean it like that. I lowered the phone. That phrase, I did not mean it like that, was becoming too familiar. Too easy for her. Too late for today. A voice beside me broke the silence. First time flying alone, I turned. A man around my age, maybe a little older, sat 2 seats away. Gray hair, deep-lined eyes. He carried himself like someone used to reading people before speaking. Yes, I said. First time. He smiled gently. I remember mine. Felt like standing on the edge of a diving board. You jump because you choose to. but it still steals your breath. His words were simple, but something in his tone was understanding rather than sympathy. I suppose that is close, I said. He nodded, but worth it. Every time. I managed a small smile. I hope so. The boarding announcement crackled overhead, calling pre-boarding groups to line up. Families gathered their children. Partners grabbed each other's hands. I stood alone and reached for my suitcase handle. My legs trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of stepping into something without waiting for permission anymore. Courage and loneliness walked beside me as I joined the line. They were not the same. But tonight, they felt close enough to touch. When I stepped onto the plane, the air smelled faintly of coffee and recycled anticipation. People shuffled down the aisle in clumps, brushing coats against armrests, murmuring apologies as they squeezed past one another. I kept my eyes on my boarding pass row 14, seat A, a window seat. I had requested it without thinking, imagining I would spend the flight staring into darkness and letting the silence settle wherever it needed to. When I reached the row, a man already sat in the middle seat, 14B. He glanced up as I approached. His expression soft, attentive, without being intrusive. "Let me move my coat," he said quickly, gathering the fabric so I could slide into the row. "Thank you," I replied, settling in. He had silver hair, neatly cut, and wore wire-rimmed glasses that made him look like someone who had spent most of his life reading more than speaking. He didn't try to strike up conversation immediately, which I appreciated. But after a few minutes, when the last passengers were settling in and the flight attendants began closing the overhead bins, he offered a small, tentative smile. "First time flying this far?" he asked. I hesitated. "First time flying alone." He nodded slowly, as if that meant more than the distance itself. It can feel strange at first, like the whole world shifts a little. "What makes you say that?" I asked. "It happened to me," he said, "the first time I traveled alone after my wife passed." The honesty in his voice wasn't heavy, it was simply true. I found myself turning toward him slightly. "I'm sorry," I said. "Thank you," he replied. "It was 7 years ago. Her name was Elaine. She loved to travel. I didn't. At least not until after she was gone." He paused. "I think she would have laughed to see me now." There was a warmth in his tone, not sadness. A memory held gently. He extended a hand. "I'm David. David Whitmore." I shook it. "Maren Kessler. A strong name," he said. "Feels like someone who endures." I let out a small breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "I don't know about that." "You are here, aren't you?" he said. "On a long flight, heading into something new." The plane began to taxi. The lights dimmed slightly. I focused on the ceiling instead of the tightening in my chest. David noticed. "Not a fan of takeoff?" he asked. "I prefer when things are steady," I admitted. He nodded. "That makes 2 of us." When the engines roared and the plane lifted from the ground, I gripped the armrest briefly. David didn't say anything, didn't offer false reassurance, but his quiet presence made the moment easier. Once we were in the air and the cabin light softened, he turned slightly toward me. "So," he said gently, "what made you decide to travel now?" The question was simple, but it cut close to the truth. I looked down at my hands. "My daughter has plans this year, with her husband's family." "Ah," he murmured, "and that didn't include you." "It rarely does anymore," I said before I could stop myself. He didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was thoughtful. "Families change, sometimes in ways we don't see coming. I thought we were close." I whispered. "I thought she needed me." "Maybe she still does," he said. "But sometimes people forget the ones who don't demand to be remembered." I blinked, surprised at how accurately that struck. He continued softly. "Traveling alone is not always about escape. Sometimes it's about claiming something, claiming what I asked, your own place in the world. I looked at him fully then. He met my gaze without expectation, without judgment, just presence. We talked for a while, nothing intimate, nothing too revealing. He told me he had been a professor of American history at a small college in New Mexico. I told him I had worked as a school nurse for nearly 3 decades. He spoke with a calm assurance that made it easy to listen. And when he asked a question, he waited for the answer as if it mattered. Hours passed quietly between conversation and silence. It was the first peace I had felt in days. When the cabin dimmed further and people pulled blankets over themselves, David glanced at me. "If you need anything," he said, "or if the flight gets uncomfortable, just let me know." "I will," I said. "And Marin," he added, his voice gentler, "it's all right to start something just for yourself." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed it yet. Still, as I leaned back and closed my eyes, the seat beside me felt less like a stranger's and more like a place where I didn't have to pretend. Sometimes, it seemed, it was easier to speak to someone who carried no history with me at all. When the plane landed, my legs felt stiff, my head heavy. The flight attendants wished us a pleasant stay, but the words floated past me like mist. I followed the stream of passengers through the jet bridge, gripping the rail as if the floor might shift under me. David walked a step behind. "Take your time," he said quietly. "Long flights make anyone feel like their body forgot how to work." I managed a faint smile. Feels accurate. Inside the terminal, signs in German stretched across every wall. My eyes tried to follow them, but the letters blurred together. I slowed without meaning to. David noticed. "You all right?" he asked, tilting his head. "Just tired and overwhelmed." "Perfectly normal," he said. "First time in Europe is like dropping into a different rhythm." I tried to steady my breath. A group of younger travelers swept past us, laughing loudly, backpacks bouncing. They looked like they belonged here. I felt like someone who had taken a wrong turn and didn't know how to turn back. At baggage claim, I stared at the spinning carousel too long without recognizing my own suitcase. David tapped my arm gently. "Marin, that blue one yours, right?" "Oh, yes," I said, flustered. I do not know how I missed it. Jet lag makes fools of everyone. He said, "Once, I left an entire carry-on behind at the airport cafe. Had to sprint 30 gates to find it." I chuckled softly, grateful for the humor. When we stepped outside, the cold hit me sharply, an icy snap that made my eyes water. I wrapped my scarf tighter. A woman from our tour group waved and called our names. "Welcome. The bus is this way." Her voice was bright, practiced. A handful of other travelers gathered behind her, mostly older couples. They chatted easily, as if they had all met before. I lagged a little behind, watching their confidence with something like envy. David slowed his steps to match mine. "You are quieter than usual," he remarked. "This is a lot," I admitted. "I feel like I am walking into someone else's movie." He gave a small nod. "You are walking into your own. You just have not memorized the lines yet." His words warmed something inside me. Not dramatically, not enough to erase the exhaustion or the strange ache in my chest, but enough to keep me moving. When we reached the bus, I hesitated at the steps. The guide grabbed my suitcase and hauled it into the luggage compartment. "You doing okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, then added honestly, "Mostly." "Good. The first day is always the hardest." I climbed in carefully. David took the seat beside me, leaving just enough space to feel respectful, but close enough to feel steady. As the bus pulled away from the airport, lights blurred outside the window. My eyelids grew heavy. "Rest," David murmured. No need to force yourself awake. I turned slightly toward him. Thank you for keeping an eye on me. You do not need watching over, he said. You just need a companion for the first stretch. I exhaled slowly, letting the truth of that settle. I was still alone. I was still unsure, but I was not entirely adrift. As the bus hummed down the highway, my shoulder brushed his lightly. He did not move away. Connection, I realized, did not always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it was quieter two people, walking or sitting or simply breathing in the same uncertain rhythm. Our group's first evening tour led us into a narrow square lined with warm lights and wooden stalls. People huddled together with hot drinks, speaking in a dozen different accents. I stayed near the edge of the group, listening more than participating. David walked near me, not close enough to draw attention, but close enough that I felt less alone. The guide paused in front of a stall of carved ornaments. 15 minutes, she said. Meet back here. Clusters of travelers scattered. I drifted toward a table covered in small wooden angels. They look delicate, David said, appearing beside me. They remind me of something my husband once bought our daughter, I said, picking up one with carved wings. She hung it at the top of the tree every year. Did she take it when she moved out? He asked. No, I murmured. I do not think she remembers it exists. He studied me briefly, not with pity, but with recognition. My son kept a hideous ceramic turtle his mother hated, said it reminded him of her laugh. I laughed, startled by the sound. That bad? She threatened to throw it out every spring cleaning. He guarded it with his life. The story broke something open inside me. Lightness I had not felt in days. That is a good sound, David said. It has been a while, I admitted. We drifted to a stall selling spiced wine. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. You never said how long you were married, he said. 34 years. Paul made everything feel possible. What did he do? A mechanic. Owned a small shop near the river. People trusted him. He sounds like someone I would have liked. What about you? I asked. You were a professor, American history. He said, 19th century mostly. And your wife, Elaine, he said, voice softer, a photographer. She captured beauty in everything, even things I never noticed. How long were you married? 41 years, he said quietly. She passed 7 years ago. Cancer. I am sorry. Grief changes shape, he said. It never asks permission. I understood that more than I could say. We stood in the soft glow of lanterns as people laughed, shopped, tasted sweets. The world felt full, yet the space between us felt calm. You carry yourself like someone who spent her life making room for others, he said. I stared into my cup. Maybe, but you also look like someone starting to stand in the space she saved for herself. His words touched something tender. I am trying, I whispered. You already started. We walked back as the guide gathered everyone. One of the women from Arizona nudged me. You two look like you're having fun. Just talking, I said quickly. Talking counts. David murmured. On the bus. He sat beside me again. The silence was easy. Sometimes the best company, he said, eyes closing, is someone you never expected. I looked at him and felt myself soften. Sometimes, I said. Yes, Vienna felt brighter than any place I had been in years. Though I knew it was not the city, it was the company. Our tour group walked through the square beneath a towering Christmas tree, its branches wrapped in warm gold lights. I was trying to decide whether I should ask David about his plans for the next day when one of the Arizona women waved at us. Marin David. Stand right there, look up. Before either of us understood what she meant, she lifted her phone and snapped a picture. The flash startled me, and I let out a breathy, surprised laugh. David laughed with me, an unguarded, low chuckle that softened the lines on his face. For a moment, I forgot everything else. The woman grinned. You two look wonderful. Want me to send it to you? David nodded. Please do. My daughter will be thrilled I'm smiling for once. I glanced at him. Do you dislike taking pictures? I dislike looking stiff, he said. But with you, apparently I look human. The honesty in his tone made something warm settle in my chest. Our guide called us back toward the center, announcing a short break before dinner, while the others drifted toward food stalls. I stood near a bench and opened my phone. The photo had already arrived. I tapped it, and the screen filled with the image me, mid-laugh, leaning slightly toward David, him looking down at me with an expression that was almost tender. It didn't look staged. It didn't look lonely. It looked like I belonged somewhere. That is a good picture, David said behind me. I turned the phone so he could see. It is better than I expected. You look alive, he said quietly. Like you remembered something you almost forgot. My throat tightened. I suppose I did. I hesitated only a moment before opening my social media app. My fingers hovered, but something in me steadied. I uploaded the picture, typed a short caption. Sometimes the best moments happen far from home, and pressed post. David watched me gently, sharing it, just letting the people in my life know I am all right. I paused. Better than all right. Maybe, he smiled. Good. We rejoined the group for dinner at a small restaurant. People chattered around us, comparing souvenirs and stories from the day. David and I were quieter, though not in an uncomfortable way. He reached for the wine list, then glanced at me. Do you want to split a bottle? Yes, I said before thinking too much. I would like that. By the time the meal ended, my phone buzzed so frequently I had to silence it. Notifications piled up faster than I could read them. Old friends, neighbors, people I had not spoken to in years. And then my daughter, Hannah, Mom. Who is that man? I turned the phone face down. David looked at me gently. Everything all right? I nodded slowly. Just unexpected attention. He smiled knowingly. Joy has a way of surprising people. I breathed out, steadying myself. The picture glowed faintly on my screen. A small spark I hadn't seen coming. Joy was no longer quiet. It had gone public. I did not think much about the photo after posting it. Dinner had been warm and unhurried, and by the time we returned to the hotel, I fell asleep almost instantly. When I woke the next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop, vibrating across the nightstand like it wanted to escape. I reached for it, blinking against the light. Notifications flooded the screen faster than I could swipe. Messages from old friends, neighbors, people I had not spoken to in 10 or 15 years. You look amazing. Marin, Merry Christmas. You brave woman. Where are you? Europe, who's the handsome gentleman Spill? I scrolled, overwhelmed. Then I saw her name. Hannah. Mom, where are you? Who is that man, Hannah? You should have told me you were leaving the country. Call me, please. Hannah, I am worried. This is not like you. Not like me meant you are not behaving the way we rely on you to. I set the phone down, breathed slowly, and got dressed. Downstairs. David was pouring coffee. He noticed my expression. You look startled, he said. My phone has not stopped buzzing, I muttered. The photo, he asked. Yes. He waited, giving me space. People are supportive. I said, kind, even. And your daughter? He asked, panicked. He nodded. People suddenly pay attention when they realize you are no longer waiting for them. Before I could answer, another message chimed. Hannah, Mom, are you safe? Are you with someone I do not understand? I sighed. You do not have to respond right away, David said. Let the moment breathe. Our guide approached, gathering the group. I put my phone face down until she walked away. David looked at me. Talk to me. What is happening in your head? I want to explain everything, I said quietly. But I am tired of explaining myself. Which part feels truer? He asked. The tired one. That is allowed, he said. Outside, snow was falling lightly. 2 women from our group approached me. Maren, your photo was beautiful, one said. You looked so alive. The other smiled. You and that gentleman make a lovely pair. I flushed. It was just a candid moment. David chuckled. Very candid. On the bus. My phone vibrated every few minutes. At our first stop, a quiet cathedral, I finally checked it again. More messages. Former co-workers, old neighbors, and then Hannah again. Hannah. I showed the photo to Nathan. We are both extremely concerned. Please respond. Concerned. The word stung. I leaned against the stone wall. David joined me. You do not owe anyone a performance, he said. She thinks I am being reckless. He met my gaze. Are you? No, I whispered. For the first time in years, I feel awake. He smiled softly. Then that is enough. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked beside him through the snow, letting the unanswered messages sit where they were. People were finally noticing my absence, but only because someone else had filled the place they thought would always stay empty. We had just returned to the hotel after a long afternoon at the Christmas market when my phone buzzed. Not a message this time, but a video call. Hannah. My stomach tightened. I stepped away from the group before answering. Her face appeared instantly, framed by a chandelier so extravagant it looked pulled from a magazine spread. Behind her stretched a long, elegant dining table, white candles, crystal glasses, polished cutlery. Laughter drifted through the background. People dressed in expensive fabrics moved in and out of the frame. Her mother-in-law's house, the one I had been told had no room, Mom Hannah said breathlessly. Finally. I saw your calls, I replied. You did not answer any of them. She shot back. Her voice wasn't angry, just shaken. We were worried. Someone behind her whispered, Is that your mother? Another shushed them. I am fine, I said evenly. Enjoying my trip. Enjoying, Hannah blinked hard. You flew to Europe alone without telling anyone. You told me to stay home, I said gently. So I chose somewhere else to be. Her jaw tightened. Mom, we did not mean that literally. You know how chaotic holidays are. Nathan's family. Nathan's mother suddenly leaned into the frame. Perfect hair, perfect posture. Oh, let me see her. Hello. Maren, abroad. How spontaneous. Her polite smile was coated in judgment. It was a last-minute decision, I said. How brave, she replied, clearly meaning reckless. International travel is very demanding, especially at your age. Hannah winced. Mom, please, I said nothing rude, her mother-in-law insisted. We simply thought you were resting at home. I am managing quite well, I replied. Then Nathan leaned into view. Maren, who's the guy in your picture? Silence fell across the whole table. He's a fellow traveler, I said. A friend. A man friend. Someone whispered loudly. A few laughed. Enough, Hannah snapped. Then back to me, Mom. You should have told me you were leaving the country. I would have, I said calmly. If I felt like it mattered to you. Her face crumpled. That's not fair. It is honest. Nathan cleared his throat. We just didn't expect this. You've never done anything like this, his mother added. It's concerning when older people act impulsively. Just then, David walked through the hallway behind me. He nodded politely. Hannah's eyes widened. Mom, was that him? Turn the camera. No, I said softly but firmly. The table went silent again. I am safe. I am happy. And you do not need to worry. Mom, her voice broke. Please don't shut me out. I am not. I am simply living. A long beat. The chandelier behind her glittered like a reminder of every door that once stayed closed to me. I'll call tomorrow, I said. She nodded. Okay. I ended the call first. My hand shook, but my heart, for the first time in years, did not. When I reached my hotel room after the call, my hands were still trembling not from anger, but from something quieter, heavier. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe, but the tightness in my chest stayed. A soft knock sounded a few minutes later. It's David, he said from the hallway. I opened the door. He looked at me carefully, not prying, just present. You all right? He asked. No, I said, but I will be. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I heard a little of the call. The walls in these hotels are thin. I figured as much. I said, sitting back down, I did not mean to make a scene. You did not, he replied. Your daughter's family did. I clasped my hands tightly, staring at the floor. I do not want to resent her, but I do. A little. He took the chair across from me, leaning forward. Tell me. I swallowed hard. For years, I have been the easy parent. The understanding one. The one who never asked for anything. I thought that made me a good mother. Thought it made love easier for her. He nodded gently. And somewhere along the way, I disappeared. My voice cracked. She stopped seeing me as a person. I became background. The dependable mother who would never object, never say no, never need anything. David's expression softened even more. That is a hard place to live. I kept thinking she would eventually notice. I said, notice the effort. Notice the sacrifices. Notice me. But she only noticed when someone else did. His brow furrowed. You mean the photo? Yes. I let out a shaky breath. The moment someone else saw me, really saw me, suddenly she had questions. Concern, panic, not because she missed me, but because someone else took a seat she assumed would always stay empty. David sat quietly for a moment before speaking. Maren, being overlooked by the people you love is one of the deepest wounds there is. I blinked against the sting in my eyes. I never said any of this out loud. Not to anyone, not even to Paul when he was alive. I kept pretending it did not hurt. I wiped at my cheek. But it does. Of course it does. He said softly. I feel guilty for even saying it. I whispered, like I'm betraying her. He shook his head. No, you are telling the truth. And the truth is not betrayal. I took a shaky breath. Hannah is a good person. I know that. But good people can still overlook the ones who make life easiest for them. And now, he asked, now she is scared because she cannot predict me. I said, because I made a choice without her, because I did something for myself. David leaned closer, his voice steady. Maybe this is the moment she finally sees you, not as the easy parent, but as a whole person. I looked up at him, feeling a strange mixture of fear and relief. Do you think that can repair us? Repair, he said softly. Maybe. But more importantly, it can be the first real conversation you two have ever had. His words sank into me like something long overdue. I inhaled, exhaled, and finally said what I had carried for years. I want to be loved as a person, not just as convenience. David nodded, his eyes warm. Then say that, when you are ready. I felt something shift inside me, not anger, not resignation. Something clearer, something closer to truth. And I knew the next conversation with Hannah would not be easy. But for the first time, I felt strong enough to speak. The taxi pulled up to my house just after dusk. The air in Portland felt different than the cold I had grown used to, softer, wetter, familiar in a way that did not sting anymore. I stepped out, suitcase in hand, and the porch lights flicked on automatically, washing the entryway in a warm glow. For the first time, it did not feel like I was coming back to an empty house. It felt like I was coming back to my house. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everything was exactly as I had left it, tree still standing, garlands still neatly hung, stockings untouched, but the room felt changed. Not because it was different, but because I set the suitcase down, exhaled, and turned on a small lamp. Its soft light filled the living room without swallowing the shadows. I liked that. I did not need the room to be bright to feel safe anymore. I unpacked slowly, not out of sadness, but out of intention. A snow globe from Vienna went on the mantel. A wooden angel from Salzburg hung on a hook near the tree. A postcard from Munich rested on the coffee table, each item placed where I could see it, where I could remember what it felt like to choose something for myself. Midway through unpacking, my phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Hannah. "Let me know when you are home. I would like to talk. Whenever you are ready." I read it twice, feeling neither anger nor urgency, just quiet understanding. She was reaching out not to control the situation, but because she finally realized I was no longer orbiting around her life. I typed back a simple reply. "I am home. We can talk soon." No explanation, no apology. I put the phone down and continued unpacking. Later, I warmed a small bowl of soup and stood by the kitchen window, watching the streetlights glow against the wet pavement. My house had never been this quiet, and yet it felt fuller than it had in years. When I finished eating, I walked into the living room and sat on the sofa. I looked around the space, same walls, same furniture, same tree, but the silence no longer felt like an accusation. It felt like air, like space, like possibility. I rested my hand on the armrest, inhaled deeply, and felt something settle inside me. I had left home as someone uncertain, almost breakable. I returned as someone whole, someone who chose her life instead of simply enduring it. And the house finally felt like it had been waiting for this version of me to come back. I had just finished placing the last souvenir on the bookshelf when a sharp knock echoed through the house. Not tentative, not polite, urgent. I froze, my hand still on the wooden frame. Another knock, harder this time. I walked to the door, heart thudding, and opened it. Hannah stood on the porch, hair messy, eyes red, cheeks streaked with tears. Her coat was half zipped, as if she'd thrown it on without thinking. "Mom," she breathed, voice cracking. "Please, can I come in?" I stepped aside silently. She rushed into the living room and stopped near the tree, staring at the still-lit ornaments. "You kept everything up," she whispered. "I did," I said gently. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I should have been here. I should have decorated this with you." I didn't answer. I waited. Hannah turned toward me, shoulders shaking. "I messed everything up." I sat on the sofa and nodded for her to join me. She dropped onto the cushion beside me, twisting her hands together. "I saw the pictures," she began. "You looked happy, really happy. And instead of feeling glad for you, I panicked. I hated myself for it." Her voice wobbled, but she pushed through. "I need to tell you something I've never said out loud. I've been scared," she whispered. "Scared that I'm not a good enough mother. Scared that Nathan's family judges me. Scared that I don't measure up to their perfect image." I listened quietly, the softness of her confession cutting deeper than I expected. She continued, eyes downcast. "Every holiday, every event, they compare. They comment on everything from the way I decorate to how I discipline the kids. I feel like I'm constantly being inspected, like I have to earn being part of that family." I swallowed. understanding more than I wanted to. And when you're there, she said, voice cracking again, you make everything look effortless. You cook. You help. You know exactly how to calm the kids. You make it look easy. And I feel smaller. Her words hit me gently and painfully all at once. Hannah, I said softly. I never wanted you to feel overshadowed. I know, she sobbed. But I did. And instead of dealing with it, I pushed you out. I thought it would give me room to breathe. I thought Nathan's family would finally see me instead of comparing me to you. She covered her face, but all I did was lose the one person who actually loves me without conditions. I touched her hand lightly. She didn't pull away. She whispered, when I saw that photo of you with that man, something inside me cracked. I realized you have your own life, your own joy, and I realized how little space I've given you to live it. She lifted her head, tears streaking her face. I'm so sorry. Mom, I hurt you. I know I did. I breathed slowly, letting her apology settle where the old wound lived. Hannah, I said gently, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you told me the truth. But the way forward isn't pretending none of this happened. She nodded quickly. I know. I don't want to erase anything. I just want to fix what I broke. I squeezed her hand. Fixing takes time. For both of us. She leaned against me like she did when she was young, tentative. Careful. But needing warmth. I'll take the time. She whispered, I just don't want to lose you. I rested my cheek on her hair, breathing her in, letting my heart settle. The truth had cracked something open between us, not to shatter it, but to let in air, space, and something like hope. The next Christmas arrived quietly. Without the usual weight in my chest, I woke early, turned on the tree lights, and stood for a moment in the soft glow. The house felt warm, not because it was full yet, but because I had chosen this gathering, chosen this peace, chosen myself first. A knock sounded at the door. David stood on the porch, scarf tucked neatly into his coat. Eyes warm the way they had been in Vienna. Welcome to Portland, I said. He smiled. I have been looking forward to this. I stepped aside and let him in. The scent of cinnamon and roasted apples filled the air. He glanced around the living room, taking in the small decorations I had collected overseas. You brought Europe home with you, he said. Only the parts that felt like mine, I replied. Before he could answer, another knock echoed this one louder, followed by hurried footsteps. The door swung open and Hannah rushed inside. 2 kids tumbling in behind her. Mom, she said breathlessly, we're not late. Are we? No, I said, smiling. You are right on time. She stepped forward and hugged me, really hugged me with no hesitation and no apology folded into it. Just warmth. Nathan set down a dish on the counter and gave a small, respectful nod. Thank you for having us, he said. Thank you for coming, I replied. The house slowly filled. Laughter bounced between the walls. Plates clattered gently in the kitchen, and the children ran around the tree as if they had never missed a single Christmas here. Hannah joined me at the table as I set out the last of the dishes. Mom, she said softly, I want you to know. I'm trying. I mean that. I know. I said, and so am I. She nodded, eyes shining. It feels different this year. It is different, I said, because we are across the room. David helped Nathan adjust one of the chairs. They spoke easily, as if they had known each other longer than a few minutes. When David caught my eye, he gave me a small, steady smile, the same one he had offered on the plane when I felt out of place. Dinner settled into a comfortable rhythm. Not perfect, not seamless, but real. At one point, Hannah poured tea into my cup and rested her hand briefly on mine An unspoken acknowledgement. Fragile, but sincere. Later, when everyone moved to the living room, I stood near the tree with David. "This feels earned," he said quietly. "It does," I agreed. Behind us, Hannah laughed with her children. Her voice light, not guarded, not tense, just present. David leaned slightly toward me. "You kept your family," he said. "The question now is how you keep yourself too." I looked at the room, my home, my people, my new beginning. "I intend to," I said, not a promise to them, a promise to myself. After everyone left and the house grew quiet again, I sat at the dining table with a cup of tea cooling beside me. The tree lights glowed softly in the living room, the last reminder of a Christmas I had built on my own terms. My phone rested next to the mug, the screen still smudged from the dozens of photos my grandchildren had taken throughout the evening. I opened the social media app without thinking. The photo of David and me under the Viennese lights was still at the top of my page, still gathering comments, still being shared by friends I had not spoken to in years. I scrolled through the messages, encouragement, curiosity, pride, and felt something warm settle in my chest. Then I clicked the Write a Post button. At first, I stared at the blank box, unsure where to begin, but my hands moved before I could second-guess myself. "This is for the women who have spent their whole lives making everything easier for everyone else." I paused, then kept writing. "If your own child tells you to stay home, do not wait for an invitation that may never come. Pack a bag. Choose a place you have never been. Take one step toward the version of yourself you left behind for the sake of others." I breathed out slowly. I flew to Europe with a suitcase full of fear and came home with a heart full of something I thought I had lost. Joy. Courage. Myself. I hesitated, then typed the last line with a trembling but steady hand. "When life tells you to stay home, go see the world anyway." I reread it once. It felt honest. It felt like something I wished someone had said to me years ago. Just as I hit post, a voice behind me said, "That sounded brave." I turned. Hannah stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around her ribcage. She must have come back for the dish she forgot. "You read it?" I asked. "I saw you typing," she said softly. "I am glad you shared it. Other people should hear it. I needed to hear it too." I nodded, not pushing the moment further. Some things grow best in quiet soil. She stepped forward, touching my shoulder lightly. "I hope you keep choosing yourself." "Mom, really?" When she left, I picked up my phone again. The post already had a stream of likes and hearts, and new comments were popping up every few seconds. Women wrote things like, "You put into words what I've been afraid to admit. I needed this today. Maybe it's my turn next." I rested the phone on the table and let the weight of their voices sink into me. I had not expected to become anyone's courage, but maybe courage grows when you stop shrinking. I stood, turned off the tree lights, and headed toward the hallway, feeling steady in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with truth. If life told me to stay home, well, I had already learned exactly where I could fly instead. If you felt something in my story today, tap like, leave a comment, or subscribe for more stories just like this one.